Jack Thompson gripped the steering wheel tighter as the rain pounded against the windshield, the wipers struggling to keep up with the deluge that had turned the interstate into a slick, treacherous ribbon of asphalt. It was past midnight, and he was bone-tired from a double shift at the auto repair shop, his calloused hands still smelling of grease and motor oil, but there was no rest for a man like him, not with a little girl waiting at home, depending on him for everything since the day her mother walked out without a backward glance. Lily, his bright-eyed daughter with curls like spun gold and a laugh that could chase away the darkest clouds, was the only light in his world, but tonight, as he navigated the storm, he couldn't shake the weight of isolation that pressed down on him like the heavy sky above. He had learned to be self-sufficient, to fix what was broken in engines and transmissions because that's what he knew, but hearts. Hearts were a different story, fragile and unpredictable, and his own had been shattered 3 years ago when Sarah left, claiming the life of a single mother wasn't for her, leaving him to pick up the pieces alone. The radio crackled with static, a country song about lost love fading in and out, mirroring the fragments of his thoughts, when suddenly, his headlights caught a flash of red taillights ahead. A car pulled over haphazardly, hazard lights blinking weakly against the rain. He slowed down, peering through the blurred glass, and saw a figure huddled under an umbrella that did little to shield them from the torrent, fumbling with what looked like a flat tire. Jack's first instinct was to keep driving. He had Lily to get home to, and the babysitter was already overstaying her welcome, but something tugged at him, a sense of duty born from years of being the guy who fixed things, the reliable one in a world full of flakes. He pulled over behind the stranded vehicle, killing the engine and stepping out into the storm, the cold rain soaking through his jacket in seconds, drenching his dark hair and running in rivulets down his stubbled face. "Need a hand," he called out, his voice barely cutting through the roar of the weather, approaching the car where a woman stood, her hands muddy from trying to loosen the lug nuts, her expression a mix of frustration and defeat. She looked up, startled, her green eyes wide under the hood of her raincoat, strands of wet auburn hair plastered to her cheeks, and for a split second, Jack felt a jolt, like lightning had struck nearby, illuminating something he hadn't seen in years, vulnerability mirrored in someone else's gaze. Her name was Emily Carter, though he wouldn't learn that until later. She was a schoolteacher new to town, driving home from a late parent-teacher conference when the tire blew out, stranding her in the middle of nowhere with no cell service and no idea how to change it properly. I think I can manage," she stammered, but her voice wavered, and Jack could see the tremble in her hands, not just from the cold but from the fear of being alone out here. He shook his head, a small smile breaking through despite the discomfort. "Ma'am, in this weather. Let me help. I've got tools in the truck." Without waiting for protest, he grabbed his jack and lug wrench, kneeling in the mud to assess the damage, his movements efficient and practiced, born from countless hours under hoods and chassis. As he worked, they talked, or rather, she talked, filling the silence with nervous chatter about how she had just moved from the city for a quieter life, how teaching third graders was her passion but the adjustment was tough, and how she hated feeling helpless like this. Jack listened, nodding occasionally, his responses gruff but kind, sharing snippets about his own life without diving too deep, how he owned a small garage, how the rain always brought in more business with flooded engines and hydroplaning accidents. The tire was changed in under 15 minutes, but in that short time, something shifted. The storm seemed less oppressive, the night less lonely, as if helping her had reminded him that connections, even fleeting ones, could warm the soul. Emily thanked him profusely, insisting on giving him her number in case he ever needed anything, a coffee, a favor, whatever, and as he drove away, waving off her offers, he felt a strange lightness, like a burden had been lifted, even if just for a moment. Back home, after paying the babysitter and checking on Lily, who was sound asleep clutching her stuffed bear, Jack couldn't stop thinking about the woman on the roadside, her smile cutting through the rain like a beam of sunlight. Days turned into weeks, and life resumed its rhythm, early mornings dropping Lily off at kindergarten, long days at the shop wrestling with stubborn bolts and leaky radiators, evenings filled with bedtime stories and microwave dinners. But fate, that capricious weaver, had other plans. One afternoon, as Jack picked up Lily from school, he spotted Emily in the hallway, clipboard in hand, chatting with parents. Turns out, she was Lily's new teacher, the one who had replaced the retiring Mrs. Hargrove. Lily came bounding out, her backpack swinging, chattering about how Miss Carter read the best stories and let them draw pictures of their families. Jack's heart skipped when Emily approached, recognition lighting her face. "You, the tire hero," she laughed, extending her hand, and just like that, their paths intertwined again. Over the next few months, what started as polite conversations at school pickups evolved into something more. Emily would linger after class to help Lily with her reading, noticing how the girl struggled with certain words, and Jack, grateful, would offer to fix little things around her apartment, a squeaky door, a flickering light fixture. Lily adored her, calling her Miss Emily, with a reverence usually reserved for fairy tale princesses, and Jack found himself opening up, sharing stories of Sarah's abandonment, the pain of raising a child alone, the fear that he wasn't enough. Emily listened without judgment, her own past a mirror of loss. Her fiancé had died in a car accident 2 years prior, leaving her to rebuild from ashes, teaching as a way to nurture others when her own dreams of family had crumbled. Their bond grew quietly, like roots seeking soil in the dark. Coffee dates turned into dinners, walks in the park with Lily skipping between them, her small hands in theirs, forming a tentative triangle of trust. But Jack held back, scarred by betrayal, wondering if he could risk his heart again, especially with Lily involved. She had already lost one mother, and the thought of her attaching to Emily only for it to end badly terrified him. Emily sensed his hesitation, her gentle patience a balm, but she too carried wounds, afraid to love fully lest it be snatched away. Then came the day that changed everything, a school field trip to the local farm, where Jack volunteered as a chaperone, watching Emily interact with the kids, her laughter infectious as she helped them feed the goats and pick apples. Lily, covered in hay and dirt, tugged at his sleeve during lunch, her big blue eyes serious. "Daddy, Miss Emily is so nice. She makes me happy, like Mommy used to." Jack's throat tightened, but he brushed it off with a smile, not ready to confront the implications. That evening, as they drove home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, and Jack and Emily shared a quiet moment, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. "She's amazing," Emily said softly, glancing at the sleeping child. "You've done a wonderful job with her." Jack met her eyes, vulnerability raw in his voice. "It's hard, you know. Being everything to her. I worry I'm not enough." Emily reached over, squeezing his hand. "You are, and you're not alone anymore, if you don't want to be." The words hung between them, a promise unspoken, and for the first time in years, Jack allowed himself to hope. But hope is a double-edged sword, and as autumn leaves began to fall, so did doubts. Rumors at the shop from nosy customers whispered about Emily's past, questioning if she was ready for a ready-made family, and Jack's old insecurities resurfaced, making him pull away just as things deepened. A heated argument ensued one night after Lily's bedtime, words flying like arrows, Jack accusing her of pitying him, Emily retorting that he was too afraid to let anyone in. She stormed out, tears mixing with the crisp air, and Jack was left alone again, the house echoing with silence, Lily's innocent questions the next morning piercing his heart. "Where's Miss Emily, Daddy? Did I do something wrong?" He reassured her, but inside, he was crumbling, realizing he had pushed away the one person who made him feel whole. Weeks of radio silence followed, Jack throwing himself into work, fixing cars as if he could mend his own broken spirit, while Emily buried herself in lesson plans, her classroom a refuge from the ache. Lily, sensing the shift, grew quieter, her drawings now featuring sad faces instead of smiling families. Then, on a chilly November evening, as Jack tinkered in his garage, a familiar car pulled up, Emily's, the same one from that rainy night. She stepped out, eyes red-rimmed but determined. "I can't stay away," she said, voice trembling. "Not from you, not from Lily. We belong together." Jack dropped his wrench, pulling her into his arms, the embrace saying what words couldn't, their walls crumbling in the face of love's persistence. They talked through the night, laying bare fears and dreams, vowing to face them together. The next morning, over pancakes, they told Lily, who beamed with joy, hugging them both. But life, ever the storyteller, had more twists. Just as happiness bloomed, Sarah reappeared, knocking on the door one rainy afternoon, claiming she had changed, wanting back into their lives. Jack's world tilted, old wounds reopening as he navigated custody threats and emotional turmoil, Emily standing by him, her support unwavering. Court dates loomed, tensions high, but through it all, Lily's innocence shone, her simple faith in love a guiding light. In the end, Sarah backed down, realizing her place was in the past, and Jack, Emily, and Lily emerged stronger, a family forged not by blood but by choice. As winter snow blanketed the town, they celebrated their first Christmas together, lights twinkling like stars of promise, Jack proposing under the mistletoe, Emily's yes, echoing with tears of joy. Yet, the story wasn't over. Challenges awaited, but with love as their anchor, they faced them head-on, building a life rich with laughter, support, and the unbreakable bond of three souls intertwined.